Gentlemen, because of the recent accusations from our Greek brothers, fucking pussy-ass retards, we are obligated to read a passage from this bitch. Hazing is fundamentally at odds with the ideals of the Phi Sigma Mu. Hazing runs contrary to our core concepts of brotherhood and is prohibited in all forms. Any activities intended to produce harassment, embarrassment, blah, 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 fuck all will not be tolerated.
If they just fucking do this to weed out the weak ones. Show them you mean business. Show them you want to be here. All right, you gotta be tougher.
This is Phi Sigma Mu. We're gentlemen. We don't like to fight. But if we gotta fight, then we all fight. Punch me in the fucking stomach. Punch me in the stomach. Punch me in the stomach. Punch me in the stomach.
You're gonna drink, motherfucker!
Listen up. You guys have 3 hours to finish this keg. If you fail, I can 100% promise you are gonna have to fuck this goat. Start the music!
Guys, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Congratulations on the movie. It's been a long journey. It's premiered at Sundance back in January, right?
Yep.
I was there for it. The premiere went down amazingly. It was incredible seeing it there. Andrew, when I interviewed you there, you said that the visual idea of the film, you were going for it as if they were sort of catching this stuff on their phones at the same time, right? As if they were shooting it from their phones almost.
Yeah, I wanted the environment and the hazing scenes in particular to sort of have you know to be as realistic as possible. And these days we associate real with user-generated media. So I think Ethan and I, the DP, Ethan Palmer, we sort of really pushed the handheld envelope a little bit.
Handheld and sort of pushing in and out on the action.
Pushing in and out. We also use servo zooms, which are the electronic zooms, which sort of imply real.
Sort of like the old school digital filmmaking from like the early 2000s.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, we looked at a lot of the work of Lars von Trier, yeah.
Absolutely. Ben, what drew you to this movie?
I mean, the script itself, the story is ultra compelling just as a piece of writing. And it was an interesting conflict to explore, a really interesting character to explore. And that's what initially got my attention. And then watching Andrew's work, meeting with Andrew, getting a taste of where he comes from as far as the work that he does is very unapologetic and just ultra courageous and uncompromising. And that's the kind of work, I think, especially right now, that I'm very drawn to, I'm very excited by, and yeah, would like to be a part of.
So much of what your character is going through, on the surface, it's all about whether or not this person's going to get into the frat, but underneath, he's sort of struggling with his own masculinity after a brutal assault that takes place at the beginning of the film. What kind of man is he? Mm-hmm. What's going to make him more of a man? What's going to make him feel stronger? What were you thinking about when you took on this role? What sort of research did you do when you were thinking about masculinity on these terms?
Well, you know, Brad Land's memoir, on which the film is based, is a really great piece of writing, and for anybody who hasn't read it, I can't recommend it enough. And so that was a very, very strong resource. So using the script as kind of like my core resource, and then having the book under there to support it just added a lot of layers, a lot of texture to it. But I think, you know, questions of masculinity, it's something that every young man can relate to in one respect or another. And what it means to be a man, what it means to be seen by others and validated by others, versus having the wherewithal to validate yourself. And like you touched on, you know, the assault that takes place on Brad early in the film, that's a catalyst. You know, he's joining this frat to try and, you know, reclaim this sense of masculinity that he feels has been compromised. And so that may not be the purest intention when you're going into something that can be so potentially traumatic as fraternity hazing and pledging a frat.
The film doesn't have I think, a clear answer to what it feels about fraternities. And I mean, hazing, I think it kind of does, just by presenting the brutality of hazing. You sort of answer the question whether or not you support fraternities and hazing or not. But I'm curious how you felt about it going into the film. What your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I wasn't interested in making a polemic. Like I don't like. I don't think there's a conclusion to this problem yet, and it's more of an open question that I want people to investigate. And I also felt in the novel and for Brad Land, the character in real life and in the fictional story, it was still present. The trauma that was caused by all of those experiences, not only being beat but being hazed as well, was still very much with him. So it's not like it all wrapped up in the end. It's not like it did conclude. It was this trauma that drifted out into his life and the world, and I think it does for a lot of people that go through hazing. I mean, there's some guys that can shrug it off and get through it, and then there's other people that they just weren't built to put up with that kind of thing, and I think it can cause a certain amount of damage when it's extreme, like it is in this movie.
It begs the question of whether or not should colleges, regulate it a little bit more, because the more we learn about the sort of teenage and the young adult brain, it's not fully formed, and you haven't really developed a lot of the sort of things that you need to empathize with others, yet we sort of allow these things to happen as like boys will be boys and they'll just grow out of it. But at the same time, their brains are actually in a very critical developmental stage.
Yeah.
It's like, go ahead, knock each other around.
But I think there's a lot to be said for rites of passage and those kind of initiations into manhood, and especially when you're dealing with young children, letting kids roughhouse, there's a lot to be said for that, I think. But at the same time, there are two elements I feel that are brought into hazing itself, kind of institutionalized hazing, which is the fact that there are no consequences, and you add a pack mentality into it. When you have a pack mentality, you're playing with power dynamics, and that added on top of the fact that there's no consequences, and you add a bunch of alcohol into that, then things...
A lot of alcohol.
A lot of alcohol, yeah. Lines can get blurred, and then it can, cross over into dangerous waters. But I think, like Andrew said, there was no agenda on his part going into this to try and... It wasn't some expose or kind of demonization of frats at all.
It's a fun movie to watch.
Experience, right?
They're breaking the Geneva Convention on college campuses, so that's weird.
Right.
Should someone do something about that? Yeah, I think so. It's sort of
I don't have to step on screen and tell you that someone should do something about that.
I mean, so I think what you were saying, about men at that particular age, look, the human animal is very easily programmed. There's plenty of evidence for that in the 20th century, that's for sure. And for men at that age, I think in particular, they're very pliable. And if they get programmed in the wrong way, I think, it can have lasting effects. And like you said, in the moment, people get carried away. I mean, but I don't, I was talking to the guys this morning, and, it's the fact that a bunch of, theater kids were able to turn into veritable monsters during the hazing scenes is evidence of the fact that it's really pretty easy to get people to do weird things. And I guess I was the pledge master in that way, right? I mean,
did you have moments where you enjoyed yourself as the pledge master?
Yeah, I can say that he definitely did.
More mud, Nick.
Right.
More mud.
Yeah, no, it was always more, Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, it was almost like the hazing scenes were sort of almost like a social experiment. So that's very exciting, right? Because you're watching, you're in the moment of creation, and it's also this live, animalistic, event you've created, which is amazing. I mean, at times I felt like I was watching the chimpanzee exhibit at the zoo. So of course that's exciting, creatively. But at the same time, there's something perverse about it, you know. And also, you know, to talk to the brothers, you know, I had to get into character. So, you know, I'd have to say, look, you know, what did that pussy just say to you? You know, what did he just say to you? Are you going to put up with that? Are you going to put, you know? So, you know, you have
to like maintain the vibe of the scene while you're shooting so nothing breaks.
Yeah, and you know, like, I mean, I tend to, with actors, I sort of get into their space a little bit. So, you know, I was living through that too. I mean, obviously it was worse for them.
Did you happen to notice any power dynamics starting amongst all the actors in that scenario as well? If everyone's sort of going through these sort of hazing rituals that feature power dynamics, you also then have your two leads in the middle of that. So when you call cut, they are the number 1 and 2 on the call sheet that day. Do you notice any sort of hierarchies or power dynamics forming around that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think on this movie in particular, you know, especially because all these guys were young men too. So it's almost like there were these kind of layers of synchronicity on the set that were really interesting. And I mean, all you have to do is tell someone they're in charge, and everyone else basically will do what they say. For the most part, you know, depending on the personality. But, you know, I mean, you couldn't feel that stuff dribbled off set. You couldn't not feel it. It was like this kind of, albeit perversely exhilarating in some way, this like dark, icky goo that we were getting into, you know, sort of the proverbial heart of darkness, up the river kind of stuff, you know.
Ben, your brother's played by Nick Jonas. Were you on the film before Nick came on?
Yeah, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Was it something, when you found out that Nick Jonas was coming on to play your brother, did you worry at all that would change the dynamics of the set or anything like that, given his sort of like pop stardom?
No, I wasn't too concerned. I trusted that...
Because it's a film that for sure removes any idea of pop stardom
Totally.
from anybody that's in it.
Completely. And I trusted Andrew enough to, you know, I had faith in any decision that he made as far as casting goes. Yeah, no, I've worked with musicians like in an acting capacity before and have had nothing but really good experiences, and the experience with Nick, you know, he's a great actor and he's great in the film. He's perfect for this part. Yeah. And one thing that I can say about most musicians I've worked with, or every musician I've worked with in an acting capacity, is like they know how to work. Like if you look at a musician's touring schedule on top of recording sessions, on top of writing, on top of publicity, on top of morning radio shows, on top of all that, and then you look at them doing film work, like you cannot make a living as a musician without insane work ethic. So
it's like pop stars work ethic and James Franco work ethic.
Pretty
like
much,
side by side.
pretty much.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I wasn't really concerned about it at all.
And now the film, I haven't seen it since Sundance, but the film I believe opens with a Nick Jonas love scene. Does it not?
Within like the first 5 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit there.
How did he respond to that when you handed him the script and you're like, okay, thanks for coming aboard. Your first scene is going to be a sex scene.
Please stay for the rest of the film, by the way. Don't leave after that scene.
There wasn't even a moment of hesitation. You know, he came there to work, and actually, you know, according to some of the nudity riders and all that stuff, there was stuff that we weren't supposed to do, but I was like, hey, do you mind, you know, like, we got to see your ass because this is weird if we don't. And he was like, yeah, I don't care. So he was really chill about it, you know. I mean, I think he just cared about making the movie right and vital. And so, you know, it was, I mean, look, directing sex scenes is just unequivocally awkward and intense. So, you know, that's always a reality, but you know.
So much of this movie is, I feel like, directing a sex scene. I mean, there's legit sex scenes, but then there's all these hazing scenes, which in many ways are their own sort of like horrific power-based sex scenes as well.
Yeah, it's a good way of looking at it. I mean, someone said to me maybe at Sundance, like, you know, this is really like a rape film.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting. You know, I mean, there's obviously a lot of homoerotic energy in all these scenes and in all this kind of behavior, you know. I mean, you know, men at that age are really, you know, they'll kind of, you know, I don't want to go there, but they'll do anything
I'll be
to
the
get
first
off,
to say it.
You know?
Men in their early 20s, like late teens, it doesn't matter like how fratty they are, or how sort of like
I mean, they'll
the
take
other side of the
advantage of a
spectrum.
hole
They
in the
love
wall.
homoerotic men at that age. It's funny. It's like
Yeah.
it's a way that men sort of bond for some reason. I'll cop to that.
Yeah.
Talk about Franco's scene in the film without giving too much away. It's amazing. It's like one of his best moments in a movie. He sort of storms in out of nowhere and just completely takes over the movie for like a solid 5 minutes.
Well, you talk about like power dynamics and status and stuff. Like we all, you know, all the actors in the movie, we're all in our like early to mid 20s, and so we grew up. James Franco was the guy. Like when I was in high school and you're watching movies, you know, I remember the first thing, I think I saw him in City by the Sea, and then I saw the James Dean made-for-TV movie that he did. And his career just started kind of, he had a career that we all want to have. So he plays this frat brother who was in the fraternity like 10, 15 years ago, but still comes to the frat parties. And he's this guy we all look up to. He's like a legend within the frat. And it was like, it's James Franco and it's a bunch of young actors. Like, obviously we all idolize him. Obviously we all, you know, so that was a really easy, the dynamic was just real there.
When he walked into the room, there was this like electricity.
Sense of
you
like,
felt all the kids being like, oh, you know, and that's the way it was supposed to be in the script.
And he improvised like 90% of that. The dialogue was on book. Everything else was like, yeah. I don't want to give too much away, but
it's an amazing scene. It's like a really fantastic James Franco moment.
Yeah.
So he essentially just like, did you guys meet him before you'd even started shooting, or did you sort of set up a dynamic where it was like, you'll go here, James will walk in, and all you guys were like for a week, we're like, oh my God, this is the day.
It's funny because I remember you mentioning you were going to try and get Franco to play Mitch. Yeah. And then I looked at, well, like I went to the production office. In the production office, they have like everybody's pictures up on the wall, like who's playing who, like what your number is on the call sheet. And I saw that you still hadn't cast Mitch yet, but I saw that he was number 4 on the call sheet, and he's got one scene in the movie. And I was like, I'm pretty sure James Franco is going to be Mitch. Yeah, no, we didn't meet until that day, I think.
And he's a producer on the film.
Yes, he is.
The film had been in development for a little while, like
12 years.
12 years.
Yeah, Christine Vachon bought the rights to the book 12 years ago, and then actually Franco came on, I think, just several years after that. So they've had the material for, you know, a long time, and it went through a lot of iterations with different directors, and it never came together. And so I was lucky it came together then. You know, just one note on that scene, you know, the physical contact, that was not planned. And I just remember sitting on the monitor, and I'm right outside on the stairwell by myself with my little monitor, and whack, you know, he just hits him, and I'm like, oh.
James is hitting Ben.
Ben. James is hitting Ben. And I, whoa, like, and I saw your face be like, you know, and I was
How do you
like,
handle that in that situation? Do you just sort of let it go?
I said, just go for it.
Let's open it up to the audience for some Q&A. Who's got a question out here?
Hey guys, what's going on?
Hey man.
Congrats on the project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So 2 questions for you. My first question is, while shooting the movie, did you guys feel like you're reliving your college experiences over again? And what were your favorite moments on the set?
Andrew and I kind of joked around about this when we first started shooting, but most of the actors in the film, when you're like an actor that age, you either didn't go to college or you went to drama college. So I went to drama.
The fraternity's like at drama college.
A lot more ballet slippers and dance belts, I imagine. Maybe not.
But you know there's hazing there, too. Number 4 on the list is arts and drama clubs.
No way.
Yes.
As far as hazing goes?
Yeah, so maybe you have some things. Yes, no
Maybe
kidding.
I've got some
It's
skeletons in my closet. I don't know.
From your tour.
Yeah.
Do your scene work again.
But it kind of felt like getting to have college experience for the first time, you know, which was really fun. And sorry, what was the second question? Oh, favorite moments. It was that's tough. There were a lot of moments that I loved. There's a scene where one of the characters takes Nick and I into a legacy room, and we smoke cigars, and he's really drunk, and Andrew kind of let us off the leash on that when he said to the actor Gus playing Chance, just kind of improvise something, and Nick and I had no idea what he was going to do, and it's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. But that one was I'll never forget that experience. And there were a few scenes. There's a scene toward the end of the film where Nick and I are in a car in a parking lot, and we shot it actually the first week, but that was a really meaningful scene for us to do. So that was one I'll definitely remember.
Next question. I think this is our last question.
Hi guys. I wanted to know how you guys felt about the movie The Neighbors and how they took a more comedic, more fun approach to filming frat life.
Yeah, I mean, look, some of it's funny, okay? I mean, I'm not like, we don't, you know, not what's in the movie, in my movie, that a lot of that, most of that is not so funny, but, or not funny at all. In fact, it's horrifying, but, you know, some of the behavior is funny. I mean, I think a lot of people went to college, got wasted a lot, and probably way too much, and, you know, there's some humor in that. It's not like, I don't have a problem with those movies at all. I think, you know, that's fine, and they can be funny, but you know, hopefully there's some kind of a balance, you know, and maybe this film will offer a little bit of a counterbalance to all those movies, you know, that are almost exclusively comedies about college life.
Most movies about college life, particularly that are set against the backdrop of fraternities, this is the only one I can think of that's not a comedy. When you look at Neighbors or Animal House or Old School, and there is a lot to, you know, there's a lot of mileage in the entertainment value of frat life. And this is just kind of a different look at it, you know.
I would also say it's not being a comedy, it's one of the few that doesn't perpetuate the boys will be boys kind of stereotype of frat life, which is, I think, inherently kind of dangerous to continuously perpetuate culturally. You know, it's not like a boys will be boys is a very good thing to think about, especially in regards to this. Guys, when can people see GOAT? How can people see GOAT?
Tonight, it premieres here in New York, and you know, you can see it digitally as well, starting this evening, I guess, or tomorrow morning.
The release it's September 23rd. It releases in theaters, right?
You know,
so September 23rd.
I thought it was day. Okay.
In select cinemas. And
take it away, Ben.
VOD, and then on demand as well. I think on the 23rd.
Thank you,
guys. Congratulations on GOAT. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you guys. Thanks a lot.